If you're a new player coming into World of Warcraft for the very first time in 2024, this list over here of all the classes that you can play might seem a little overwhelming, especially if you've made the mistake of going online and reading up on what specialization should I play and what's the meta for this class and what's the best build for this class and what talent should I pick for this class and am I playing this class solo or am I doing grouping? Am I doing mythical grouping? Am I doing mythical raiding? What am I doing with this class? It can all seem overwhelming. But the thing that I love about World of Warcraft is that at the end of the day, they provide players with many different tiers of difficulty, which means if you just want to play the game for the story and have the most simplest base experience while enjoying good cinematics, fun cutscenes, great writing, and just good fun, then you don't have to worry about any of that, and you can just focus on what makes the core classes so much fun. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to what class should I play? Well, I'm going to run you through these classes from my perspective, some of the things that I think make them really fun and unique, and then you can make your decision at that point. If this is your first time tuning into one of my videos, that's awesome. I do guides like this for lots of different games, so make sure to check out all the other playlists. I daily am streaming here and on Twitch because we multi-stream, and of course we also do movie reviews, TV shows, and stuff. You can also come join us on the Moonguard server if you want to come hang out with us in game in World of Warcraft. We are a very casual story-based guild. We raid on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Central on normal mode only. It's not sweaty. It's just good, clean fun. If you want to check out a copy of my latest book, links are down below. It's kind of like Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms if you like that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, let's get into what class should I play in World of Warcraft if I'm a new player for 2024. So, right up is the fighter. Or the warrior as they call it here. And it is, like many other games, the simplest class to play because there's not a lot of thinking involved. You can either be a straight up tank, with sword and board and taking all the hits and soaking up all the damage and just aggroing and getting all the things on you with taunt, or you can be a dual wielding or two-handed weapon wielding warrior who does lots of damage. It's that simple. Across the board, all of these have 3 different specializations, so anytime you get into one of these classes, you're going to have 3 different ways that you can play it, and the beauty is you can change those specializations at any point in time, on the fly, in dungeons, wherever you want to. It doesn't matter. So as long as you've got gear sets set up for the different specializations, you're good to go. And at the most basic level of gameplay, you don't even need to worry about the specialization gear sets. You just change your specialization, you're good to go. So warrior is definitely the easiest. My favorite, however, it's not the best. It's not going to be the best on this list. We're going to talk about the best later. But my personal favorite in World of Warcraft is the hunter. I love ranged characters. I've been playing rangers and hunters for many, 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 many years. One of the things I love about the hunter in World of Warcraft is the variety of pets, because you can go out in the world and tame pets. There's a whole website dedicated at Petopia. You can go find, I think there's hundreds of different pets that you can tame in the game and have as your animal companions. And if you take the Beast Mastery specialization like I have, you can actually have 2 pets out at any given time, which makes this a hell of a lot of fun for those of you who just want to get in touch with your wild animal side and pew-pew with bows or guns or whatever it is that you choose to shoot with. It's great fun. It's an easy class to play because of the fact that your pet does everything for you in terms of tanking, so you don't have to stress too much about being up in the thick of it. You just kind of stand back and do it from a distance if you want to. There is a melee build if you want to get up close and personal, but I prefer the ranged methods here. Now, the mage is like mages in most other games. There's different specializations, whether it's fire or ice or energy, and this class is all about just making things go boom. Like, big bada boom. Like, there's just so much going on with the mage in terms of firepower that you really can't go wrong if you like just seeing things explode and watching huge AoEs and VFX go off your screen like crazy. It can be a little tricky to play because you are so squishy. So if you're playing solo, you're going to have to get used to dancing around the battlefield and using all of your mobility spells. If you're in a group, it's much easier because you just stand back and lay down firepower for everything. So if you like blowing things up, the mage is never a bad choice. And then you get into the Rogue, which is your typical DPS build. There's a variety of ways to play it, but at no point in time are you ever going to be a tank. You are only a DPS character. It just depends on how do you want to do your DPS. The Rogue in the right hands is one of the best DPS characters in the game. It has been for years. But it's more about single target in my mind. There are different ways you can specialize and everything else. But I think the Rogue is best played in a party. You can obviously play this solo if you want, and there are tools to make it easy, but I much prefer the Rogue in group settings. So this is great if you have someone else who's playing a warrior, or if you have someone else who's in your group who can take the aggro away so that you can get the best out of this class by hiring them for their flanks and going beyond. Now the Priest is a little unique in this game in the sense that not only can you specialize in healing, but you can also specialize in damage. So it just depends. Do you want to be helping your friends? Do you want to be doing a balance between damage and healing? Or do you want to just go out and do damage? That's it, with a couple of backup heals. This is an area where I would say that the way most people play this is that depending on the needs of the guild, they'll probably run like the Shadow spec, which is the DPS spec for leveling, but then have a healing specialization set up for when they're going into dungeons. But that's not always the case. You do find some people who specialize completely in the dark side of things and just do damage with this class. But I would argue that that's not where the Priest really shines. It obviously is a viable option for people who want to play a Dark Priest, but it's not the way that I personally prefer to play the Priest class. I always have viewed the Priest as a healer, and that's the way I personally choose to play them. Now the Warlock is another DPS class that is similar to the Mage, but you get minions at your disposal, and the minions do different things, and they can add different buffs to your group and your raid party depending on what you're doing, and there's different specializations for this like there are with everything else. So the Warlock in my mind it's very similar to the Mage, other than the fact that you get your minions, and so it just deals damage in a different way, and they can bring a lot to the table if you're willing to be a little bit on the weaker side in the early stages of the game, much like the Mage, but they do get extremely powerful in the late game, and they bring a lot to the table. Plus they do summons, you have the healthstones, the cookies. The Warlock is a lot of fun. A lot of people like them. It's definitely one of the funner DPS classes out there. The Paladin is another one where you have an option of either being the tank or, well, I guess I should say another one. It's one of these unique options, kind of like the Druid, I would say, and even the Monk, in the sense that you get a tank build, a DPS build, and a heal build. So how do you want to play your Paladin? Do you want to be sword and board, up in the thick of it, drawing all the aggro like a warrior? Or do you want to be, the holy Paladin who's doing backup heals? And you can even main heal on a resto. But, it just depends on how deep down the healing line you want to go. I would argue that if you're going to be healing, I would prefer a holy priest. But the Paladin does work very well with the actual healing spec for them. But you do have your DPS spec, your heal spec, and your tank spec. So you get a lot of variety out of this class depending on what you want to go for. Now, the Druid, which I can't actually choose on this class. Let me choose a different race here, excuse me. The Druid is probably I would argue this is one of the most complex classes to play in World of Warcraft because you have all sorts of different things you can do based on the shape that you're in. So yes, there are specializations. We could talk about that here in a minute. But at the core of the Druid is the fact that you can shapeshift into all these different forms. So you have you have the cat form, you have the bear form, you have the travel form, you have all these different forms that you can assume. The Moonkin form is an example. And each one of these is unique to a specific type of playstyle. So the bear is your tank type. The Moonkin is the caster, and the kitty cat is slash and claw and DPS. But there's also the specializations. So you have like the Balance Druid, which is what I like to play, which is the Moonkin. And then you have a Restoration Druid, who is a healer. And then you have a Feral Druid, who's all about the animal forms and getting the most out of the melee of that build. And many people choose to take Feral and, you know, set them up as a tank. But it just depends on how you want to set up, because the way you spend your points depends on, are you making your cat form more powerful, or are you making your bear pet stance more powerful? Definitely one of the more complex classes that I've ever played in an MMORPG, given the amount of things you can do and the switching on the fly of all the different animal forms depending on situation. Even in balance form, which is primarily for the Moonkin, where you know, it's all about spell damage. I'm still doing shapeshifting quite a bit on situational basis, especially for sneaking around the battlefield. So it's a lot of craziness. The Shaman is up next. I got to get over here to one of these who can be a Shaman. The Shaman can be healing or DPS, sort of like a utility build, and they do everything with their totems. It is, I would argue, one of the cooler classes to play that is really slow in the beginning stages of the game, but as you get more powerful in whatever specialization you've chosen to go, whether it's the healing specialization or the DPS specializations, the deeper you get into the game, the more fun the Shaman becomes to play. But it is, for me personally, one of the slower ones out of the gate, and I really struggled with the Shaman up until around level 50 was when I finally started to feel like I was getting into the groove of things, but it did take me quite a bit to get there. But this is a great class for those of you who like to just sort of hang back in the outskirts and either do buffs and utility or detrimental effects to the bad guys, slapping down totems all over the place that do different things. This is a very cool utility build for the game. Then you have the Monk, which are essentially DPS characters. They can be a variety of different things, excuse me, on how you based upon how you spec them. We have in our guild actually a couple of people who have monk healers, and it's very interesting the way they do this. So the monk is another one where it's pretty much all based on being up front and in the middle of combat. It just depends on whether or not you're doing DPS or whether or not you're doing healing, but it is very much focused on being up front and close and personal with everything. So it's not a distance character, it's not a ranged character. You're up there in the thick of it. And then you have the Demon Hunter, which I have, it says Night Elf or Blood Elf. So let's go over ahead and choose Demon Hunter. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Demon Hunter is another one where right now, a lot of people say that as of the time of this recording for Dragonflight, the Demon Hunter is like one of the best tanks in the game. But this, again, depends on how you want to specialize this, because you have the tank specialization and then you have the DPS specializations. It's not overly complex to play, because it's similar to, say, the other ones where you can, like the Warrior or the Paladin, where you can do, you know, tank or your DPSing. But it does have a really unique backstory that makes this class, you know, really unique from a roleplay perspective, because it can only be played by 2 races. So that's something that's key here. You can only be a Night Elf or a Blood Elf are the only options for this. There's some uniqueness to the roleplay components, but otherwise it's just a straight up fun class to play. Then you have the Death Knight, and now I've personally, out of all the tanks I've ever played, the Death Knight is one of the most original types of fighters that I've ever had the experience of playing. I did the Death Knight through Wrath of the Lich King Classic for a while and tanked with it on raids and through dungeons in the Blood specialization. It's a hell of a lot of fun to play. It has a super cool backstory to it, and it just looks really cool no matter what race you're playing. It is, I would argue, way more complex than the Warrior or even the Paladin in terms of tanking, because there's so many situational abilities that you get with the Death Knight. But it can also be super simple if you're playing just like a normal group and you're not worried about the meta too much. Like with the blood specialization in particular, it was just basically round up everything, AoE everything in sight, and just mow them all down, and you get the leeches and your self-healing, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. I'm going to be playing a Death Knight again coming up in the War Within. I'm going to be making my Earthen is going to be a Death Knight, and I cannot wait to get back into that. And then there is the Evoker, who can only be a Drakthir. And as they say, they are healers or ranged damage. And depending on how you want to, again, there's only a couple of options at the moment for the Invokers because they are the newest class to the game as of Dragonflight, which is when we're recording this. And they may be allowing the Drakthir to be more than Evokers later on. But as of right now, if you want to be an Evoker, you have to play a Drakthir. Now, technically, it says they are healer or range damage. I think most people that I know are playing these as DPS characters. They get some really cool abilities to fly across the battlefield and like lay down flame. Visually, this is one of the most impressive classes to play, just because they look really cool when they're in combat and flying around the battlefield. So it's something to consider if you want to have something that looks cool and go from there. Now, at the end of the day, what is the class that I think you should play? What class should you play in World of Warcraft in 2024? This is the end, right? This is what everybody wanted me to talk about from the beginning, but I don't rush. I don't rush. So if I had to pick, if out of all the classes that you can play, I personally think that if you're a new player, you'll go with the fighter, and we'll talk about that in another one. It's either going to be the fighter or the hunter for new players, in my opinion. However, this is just for anybody who might be coming into the game. You might want to try this for the first time, not just as a new player. Maybe you haven't been back in a while. If you want the versatility of having everything at your disposal, I would highly recommend going for the Druid. Because the Druid has everything. You have all of these different shapes. And one of the cool things about like harvesting with a druid is like if you're in like travel form as an example, but you can essentially travel form allows you to go from water to air to land, and it allows you to just seamlessly transition, which makes harvesting a breeze if you're just running around, and it also just makes traversing different land type environments a breeze because you're essentially just seamlessly going from air to land to water. It's that easy. But also because you can heal, you can do DPS, you can have the different forms which allow you to be a tank or a DPS character or a caster character. There's a lot of versatility here with the Druid. But it's essentially, in my mind, the three easiest to play are the fighter, the hunter, and the druid. But if I had to pick something for, what is the best class out of the gate, I personally think it's the druid because of the versatility that this class offers. Now, I didn't play a druid out of the gate. I have a druid who I'm currently playing as my third character on the server that we're playing on right now, Moonguard. My main is a hunter, and then I have a warrior as my, so my main is a hunter, I have a warrior as a secondary, and then I have this druid that I'm leveling up, and I got all sorts of alts around the table. But I do think that the druid offers a lot for different people with all the animal forms, and they have really cool spell effects, and there's all these really cool abilities that you can get. And I just think that for my money, if you're looking for something that is really well rounded, this is my take on it. Of course, everybody's got different opinions. You can try different things, but the best part is that you can respecialize and respec at any point in time, and you can always play additional characters if you decide that you want to try something different, because that's the beauty of having all of these classes at your disposal, is that there's no limit to what you can do. So hopefully you enjoyed my version of what's the best class to play in World of Warcraft in 2024. If you liked the guide, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams here and on Twitch. Come join us on Moonguard if you want. We raid Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Central. Just hit us up in Discord for an invite to the guild server, and you can fill out an application there. And don't forget to check out my latest book. Links are down below. Till next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy gaming.